恭请大德圣听，为此法会及一切众生，请转妙法轮教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，殊证无生。Will the Shankar with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain peace and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputo che. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it, and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one, Medicine Master does come one. Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Venerable Master, and all good-knowing advisors, welcome back. This is lecture number 134. Let me get today's slides as usual. While I'm getting today's slides, does anyone, if you have any questions, please unmute your microphone or type into the chat box. There is already a question from Peggy. It's about people who have passed away. There seems to be there's recommendations of not touching the body for a number of hours, but there's also a view that where the consciousness leaves from, that part of the body will be warm, and is that contradictory? Yeah. Okay, so I have I'm very happy because my auntie and my cousin is with us today. Okay. Thank you very much. Nothing like family. Okay. What you're going to do today is we're going to go through the last exercise on mindfulness to help us in developing loving kindness, and so we're going to look at mindfulness of the gods or the Devas. This will be a short one. Okay, so Ron has a question. Who is Vairochana Buddha? Ron, come on, you can Google. I'm saying that because I don't have a definitive answer for you. Vairochana Buddha, okay, I'll come to that later. All right. Maybe Ron, you can Google and then tell us what you find out. And then I also have a bit, after we do mindfulness of the gods, there's another mindful exercise, which is not very commonly spoken of. It's a bit macabre because it's about mindfulness of impermanence or mindfulness of death. And the reason why I thought we will share it today is, although it's not directly related to the practice of loving kindness, it can be. It's not direct. The linkage is not obvious. But the reason I'm sharing it is because of one of the sutras that I shared recently that had to do with someone dying, and because the whole family was not, the whole family's practice was mindfulness of impermanence, and they all became gods after that. So it's a very meritorious mindfulness exercise. So I thought, okay, we'll talk about that since we are concluding our look at the recollections or the mindfulnesses as a practice. All right. Okay. If I've lost you, I'm sorry, but we'll get there. Okay. So on mindfulness of the gods or mindfulness of the Devas, there's a question that says the disciples of the Buddha should recollect the Buddha and the Dharma of the Buddha exclusively. Why recollect the gods? So this is exactly how Nagarjuna Bodhisattva starts this chapter on mindfulness of the gods. So his own answer is, as a reward for their actions, people receive the happiness of the heavens. This is why the deities or the gods who live there are recollected. Furthermore, the Buddha himself gave the reasons for practicing the recollections and declared, okay, I think I might have missed some pages. Since I don't have the original notes, I'll just go through the next page. Next slide says, the noble disciple who recollects the deities should have the following thought. So this is how you practice this mindfulness of the gods. It says the Chatu Maharaja Jika. What heaven is that? That's the heaven that's said to be closest to humans, both in terms of physical location and in terms of being able to attain rebirth there. It's very easy to get reborn in the heaven of the four kings. All you have to do is be generous. Okay, so it's the first heaven closest to our realm, Jambudvipa. So it says the heaven of the four kings or the gods there are born in their paradise as a result of 5 good qualities, namely faith in karmic results of transgression and merit, the observance of morality, hearing the holy dharma or the teachings, the practice of generosity, and the practice of wisdom. So these 5 qualities. Okay, so basically understanding cause and effect, okay, faith in cause and effect. And because you have faith in cause and effect, you know how to observe the precepts, which is morality. And then because you want to know how to maintain the precepts well, you listen to the Dharma, to the teachings of the Buddha. And then by listening to the Dharma, you realize, practice of generosity is very good. So you practice generosity. And finally, the practice of wisdom, which is what we are all doing right now, trying to increase our wisdom. Okay. Then as a practitioner, what goes on next in your thoughts is, then the practitioner will think, say, I too possess these 5 qualities and I rejoice, for it is said that the deities as a result of these 5 qualities have taken birth in the blessed abodes. So when you compare yourself to the gods, you say that what makes the gods so great? Because, the practices that enable them to become gods, I am hopefully, okay, I am doing it, and I am doing it right now. So that's one recollection. And then you recollect and say, I too, who possess those qualities, could be reborn there if that is what I wanted. So you're creating the opportunity there now. But as the happiness of the paradises or the heavens is transitory, I will not do so. Okay, so being born in the heavens, there's a expiry date. The lifespan is going to end. So the Buddha says, and the disciple will reason in the same way for the other 5 groups of deities. So the other 6 heavens in the in our realm, the realm of desire. So the heaven of the 4 kings, right up to the Triumtrisha heaven, yes, where Maitreya Bodhisattva is right now. In the future is going to come back. He's going to come as the next Buddha. Yeah, so the 6 heavens. Okay, then the next slide has a question. It says, in the threefold world, there are many pure deities in the world of form, or the heavens of the dhyanas, and the formless world, otherwise known as heavens of the formless dhyanas. Says, why recollect only the gods of the desire realm? Okay, first let me explain what's going on. Okay, so the threefold world, what is the threefold world? The threefold world, in other words, is also known as samsara. So it's the 3 realms of existence. It encompasses, before we came into loving kindness, we were learning about the hells. We were learning about the different realms, the 31 planes of existence, the hell realm, the human realm, the animal realm, the spiritual realm, and then the heavenly realm. So the triple realm is broken up in 3 main, which is the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm. Okay, so where we are from the hells right up to the 6 desire heavens is known as the world of desire. So that's the first realm. And then the heavens above that is known as the world of form. That's the second realm. And the world of form has heavens known as the heavens of the first, second, third, and fourth dhyana. And how you get there is to refine. It's not just through like practicing generosity anymore. It is through more of developing your mental or meditational skill. That's how you get to the world of form. So that's why this question says there are many pure deities or gods in the world of form. It's a higher level of existence. And then above that, in an even purer form of existence, is known as the formless world, the formless dhyanas. How do you get there? You have there are a total of 8 dhyana levels of concentration, the first 4. And then if you can go beyond the 4th dhyana into the other, the upper concentrations, that's how you can get born there. Okay, so the question is, why are we only looking at the desire realm? How come you're not contemplating the 2 upper realms, which are where beings are purer? Okay, Suiling says, is it Tushita heaven? Maitreya is, oh yes, yeah, sorry. Maitreya Bodhisattva, Maitreya Bodhisattva, the future Buddha, is in the Tushita heaven. Yeah, I think I gave you another heaven, Triumtrisha heaven. Triumtrisha heaven is actually the heaven of the 33, which is the second heaven. First heaven is heaven of the 4 kings, and then heaven of the 33, then the Suyama heaven, and then the Tushita heaven, and then the heaven of bliss by transformation, and then there's the heaven where they have powers over the other heavens. Like, how do you say? Their blessings are, it's like they not steal, they steal, what they want, they get it, but from the different heavens below them, something like that. I think it's called the Paranimita Vastin heaven. Yeah. So that makes up the 6 desire heavens. I don't have my notes right now. Okay, so the answer is it is in the Shravaka system, or the sound hearer system, that it is a matter of just recollecting only the deities of the desire realm. But in the Mahayana, it is forbidden to recollect the deities of the threefold world. Okay, I'm not really sure how to explain this. So let's just move on first, okay, and then maybe I can understand if anyone knows what is trying to say, because I couldn't find any notes to this. Okay, but let's move on first, and then we can come back. It says the practitioner who has not yet attained the path very often is still attached in mind to the 5 objects of enjoyment belonging to the world of man. This is why the Buddha recommends recollecting the Devas, or the deities. If the practitioner has been able to cut through lust, he will be reborn among the gods of the 2 higher realms. I mentioned just now the world of form, which is the heavens of the 1st to the 4th dhyanas, and then the formless, which is the 4 upper dhyana concentrations. Says if not, he will be reborn among the 6 classes of gods of the desire realm, where the 5 objects of enjoyment are excellent, subtle, and pure. So you still have the 5 sensory objects, which is not which are not they don't exist in the higher heavens. So it says the Buddha does not want people to be reborn again and enjoy the 5 objects of enjoyment. In other words, the 6 desire heavens. But there are beings who are unable to enter into nirvana. And it is these beings that the Buddha tells to recollect the gods. Okay, so I have a better idea now. So basically, recollect, if you have the ability, automatically you will go into the if your Kung Fu is good, okay, you can meditate and you can become very pure in your meditation states. You will automatically go into the world of form, which is the 4 dhyana heavens, or the higher one, the formless world. For those who don't have that Kung Fu, okay, which is a lot of people, majority of people, then the Buddha will tell them, okay, you can do this recollection of the gods. So that's what it means. In the Mahayana, from a Mahayana point of view, this is not a encouraged practice. Mahayana meaning not Mahayana in the common sense, but Mahayana in terms of how great your practice is. Okay? All right. At this point, because we're going to move on now to mindfulness of death or impermanence, does anyone have any questions you want to bring up? Okay, Ron has a question. Ron said, right intention is made of 3 attributes: renunciation, goodwill, and harmlessness. What does renunciation mean? I guess I'll talk about that now, since we're going to change topic somewhat. I've spoken about this, Ron, I think it was last week. Renunciation is not about giving up, or like how people say, like you're sacrificing something. When I wanted to leave home before, people say, oh, you're making such a sacrifice. But renunciation is being able to see things with wisdom. You see how you examine your relationship with something. It could be an emotion, it could be a physical item, and you understand your relationship with the item to an extent that if you find that it's harmful to you, and because you realize that it's harmful to you, you automatically give it up. Not give it up as like you give it away. You might still use it, okay, but you're not attached to it. So that's what it means when they say renunciation. So I gave the example of previously, I would always like nice cars because to me, a car was an extension of who I was. Like for example, the level of my success in my career, So to me, a car was something that was an extension of my personality. And that's not good. If, for example, in my case, because then I would want to always get, how you say, an expensive car, because that's how I saw myself. Or, if something happens to the car that make me disappointed. And it also meant that a lot of my income would go towards a car like that. And now when I look back, I realize how silly it was. At that time, I couldn't see it. But now when I look back, I realize, it was so unnecessary what I did. And some people are naturally like that. They just see their car as a means of getting from A to B. It's a tool. But for me, it was more than a tool. And if I could have, like, for example, now, say if I had a choice and I were to, say, purchase a car, I would see it purely from the point of view as a tool, no longer as an extension of my ego or my personality or the person I was trying to project. And so you can say that there's some renunciation happening there. So renunciation comes with wisdom. When you see the effect of something on you, if it's harmful, and then you can give it up, or you can see that you are attached to it. So the item can be a fairly innocent thing or the habit, but you realize through your attachment or through your relationship with it, it becomes unhealthy, unwholesome. It makes you, it creates opportunities for your own afflictions and suffering. That's where you can deal with the attachment. So that's called renunciation. All right. Okay. So now, mindfulness of that. Why are we looking at this? Okay, this is the story or the sutra that I shared recently on the WhatsApp group. It's called The Snake, or Uraga Peta Watu. Okay, before I get there, Swiling says, what are the 5 objects of enjoyment? It has to do with our 5 senses. It has to do with the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and the body. So it has to do with sights, sounds, smells, taste, and touch. So those are the 5 objects of 5 sensual objects of enjoyment or suffering. Because there's 3 ways to look at it. What are the 3 ways? Positive, neutral, you don't care about it, or negative, as in you don't like it. Something hot that burns you, that's negative. Yeah. Okay, so this is known as just as a snake casting away its old skin. So it says, when the Buddha was staying at Jetavana Monastery, he told this story to a lay disciple who was overcome by grief for his dead son. So this person's son had died, and he was overcome. He had so much grief in him that it was said that he couldn't perform his daily duties. He couldn't be the responsible husband, and he neglected his business. So the Buddha went to him, and the Buddha told him this story. But it's not a fictional story. It's a factual story of the Buddha's past life. So the Buddha said, once upon a time in the Kasi country at Benares, there was a Brahman family by the name of Dhammapala, in which the Brahman, his wife, their son, daughter, daughter-in-law, and maidservant, all of them found delight in the practice of recollection of impermanence or death. So this is a very weird family, but they're doing it right, okay, as you will see in the end, but not a normal, regular family. So it says, one day as they were working in the fields, their son died after being bitten by a snake. As a result of his practice, he was reborn as Shaka, king of the heaven of the 33. Okay, so he was reborn as Shakra, or Lord Indra. The family placed the body on a funeral pyre and applied the fire just as though he was burning a heap of wood. They stood there free from grief, without self-modification, with their minds fixed upon the idea of impermanence. So impermanence is also known as one of the 3 divine messages. There's another sutra where someone dies, and he goes in front of King Yama, the so-called underworld judge, who tells you, who kind of like passes judgment, not on you, but because it's all based on what you've done. He's just like a facilitator, I guess. Yeah. So he asked this person, he says, "Oh, why have you lived your life this way? Weren't you aware of the first messenger?" And the first messenger is, let me see. So the three messengers: old age, sickness, and death. So as we go about in life and we encounter old age, sickness, and death, either in ourselves, death is a bit too late once you see in yourself, but in other people, it is known as the three divine messages because it's supposed to wake you up. It's supposed to remind you of the fragility of life. So if you know the Dharma, then you should practice. Okay, so that's what this family does. Their minds fix upon the idea of impermanence. So now the Brahman son, having become Chakra, became our Bodhisattva. So apparently, this Chakra or the son eventually became Shakyamuni Buddha. So he's recollecting his past life. So having considered the good deed done in his previous birth and feeling compassion for his father and kinsfolk, his family, he went to their place disguised as a Brahman. So if you read the Jataka tales, there are stories where people get reborn as Chakra and then they find their old families back on Jambudvipa. And what they do is a bit mischievous, but done in good intention. They will disguise themselves and they come back in order to benefit their past family, yeah, or to test them. So in this particular instance, he came back and then he saw that they were not in mourning, and he was trying to like cause some trouble, but not really. So he says, "Hey, you are roasting an animal. Give me meat, for I am hungry." So then the father or his ex-father replied, says, "It is not an animal, Brahman, it is a human being." So feigning ignorance, the Bodhisattva asked the family, he says, "Was that an enemy of yours? Why do you not mourn for him?" So the father said, "He was no enemy, but one nurtured in our own bosom, our own tender son of excellent qualities. Just as the serpent casts aside his old skin and attains a body that it is own, humans also abandon their useless body and die. He who is being burned does not know that his kinsmen mourn. Therefore, I do not weep for him. He has gone to his next life according to his karma." Okay, so that's the father. Then the wife replied, okay, actually it's his mother, the wife of the Brahman. So the wife of the Brahman, which is his mother, replied, says, "For 10 months I bore him in me, I suckled him, I placed his hands and feet. He grew up, my son, sir. Uncalled he came then, unbidden he has gone. As he came, so he went. Why weep?" So they're very pragmatic. Yeah. And then his sister said, "He was my brother. If I should weep, I should become weak. What would I gain? My crying would only bring more sadness to our relatives, friends, and family." And then the widow, his wife, said, "He was my husband. Just as a child cries asking for the moon, which is a very stupid thing to do, it is the same as someone who mourns for the departed." And then finally, the servant said, "He was my master. The gentleman was to me very full of patience, enmity, and kindness, acting properly like a grown-up son nourished. Just as a shattered pot cannot be fixed, it is the same as crying over another's death." Okay. So I guess normal people would feel sad that after they die, their family doesn't really care, but not Chakra. He says, when Chakra heard their talk, he was pleased and said, "You have rightly developed attention to impermanence. Henceforth, you no longer need to plow and do other labor." So what he did, since he was Chakra, he was Chakra is regarded as like the king of gods. So he filled their house with royal treasures, says the 7 gems, and advised them with the words, "Diligently practice generosity, observe the moral precepts, and keep the fasting days." Then he revealed himself. He showed them he was actually Chakra, who was their former relative, and then he went back to the heaven. So this story reminds me, there's I think a recent news article. So you have this story based on the Dharma, based on wisdom, and then you have normal worldly ways, which also make perfect sense if you view it from a point of view of normal people. Someone recently faked their own death. He wanted to, I think what did he say? He felt neglected by his family, so he let his family think that he had died. And then at his funeral, he arrived by helicopter to surprise them and to remind them to cherish family members when they're still alive. I mean, there's some good things there, you know. So reading this story reminded me of that news article. I'm not sure if any of you have read it. If you do, and if I told that wrongly, you can maybe correct me. Okay. Then the story goes on to say, and the Brahman and his family then gave donations and performed other meritorious deeds, and having lived to a good old age, were reborn in the world of the Devas. So apparently all of them, when they died, they all became gods themselves. Then when the Buddha told this Jataka story to the grieving lay disciple, remember this is how all this began, he became pacified, and then and there he attained the path of stream enterer, a first stage arhat. So this is how the Buddha knew what to say and how to bring a man to his senses. Actually, more than his senses, he went beyond his senses and became a first stage arhat. All right. Okay. So having laid the reason why we are doing mindfulness of death, because it is actually a very beneficial practice, although a bit not a very seemingly, not a very like fun topic or attractive topic for most people. Now we will look at how to perform the practice itself. Okay. So it says, in regard to recollection of death or mindfulness of death, there are two kinds of death: death by oneself and death by another. What does that mean? It says the practitioner always recollects these two types of death. If nobody kills it, or you or a person, this body will die necessarily by itself. So our bodies have an expiry date, just like any food you buy in the supermarket, except maybe canned food. Canned food can last for quite long. Actually, canned food can last longer than we can, I think. Okay, anyway, maybe not, but the point is our body has an expiry date. We're just not aware of it. So that's what it means by death by oneself. Not even for the time of a finger snap can one believe that this conditioned dharma, which is the body, will not die. Most people live their life trying not to know this, or trying to be ignorant, trying to push it away. But no one, believes that they will live forever. Although we live like we kind of will. Yeah. So it says, at all times within this body, death is present without even waiting for old age. One cannot be based on this mass of sorrows, sufferings, and decrepitude. Why does it say that? Well, you can trace most of this back to our body, a physical body. So it says the desire for life makes us hope for safety and immortality, but this hope arises only in fools. In the body, the four great elements are all destroyed. As long as a person carries the chest containing the four venomous snakes, how can the wise think of safety? So this snake's metaphor is used in certain sutras to show that if you handle a snake, you have the risk of getting bitten. So that's what the body is like. The body will eventually bite us. Then it goes on, it says that exhalation, meaning our breathing, should be followed by inhalation, that inhalation should be followed by exhalation, that awakening should follow sleep. All these things are difficult to guarantee. Okay. Why? Because internally as well as externally, the body has many enemies. Thus it is said, some die in the womb, some die at birth, some die at a ripe age, some die during old age. In the same way, when the fruit is ripe, it falls for all kinds of reasons. Okay, if you want to really understand when the fruit is ripe, it falls for all kinds of reasons. What does that really mean? Go to a durian plantation and go walk around when it's durian season. Then you will understand the significance of when the fruit is ripe. It falls for all kinds of reasons. Because if a durian falls on you, that might be the last thing that will ever happen to you. So people always seek to avoid death, the cruel and wicked thief. But it is hard to believe that one can ever escape this thief and find safety. Imagine a great and wise man of unsurpassable power and strength. Neither before nor after nor at present will he escape death. And says there are no skillful words, there are no supplications that can free one, there is no fortified place where one can hide from it. Neither by observing pure morality nor by exertion can one elude it. Death is a pitiless thief. When it comes, there is no place to escape from it. So death, Mr. Singh Ji Tong in our Vesa group, he said nothing is certain. Well, death is certain. The timing may be uncertain because we are not aware of when it comes, but you can be sure they say taxes and death, these two things are very certain. Okay, so there's a sutra, very interesting sutra. Shufu has quoted this sutra before, but in a different way. So it's called the Maranasmitri Sutra. Literally means mindfulness of death sutra. So it said one day when the Buddha was speaking to the monks on the meaning of death, a certain bhikshu, having arranged his upper robe over his left shoulder, said to the Buddha, I can meditate on the meaning of death. So he must be pretty proud to proclaim this to the Buddha. So the Buddha asked him, how do you meditate? And the reply was, I do not hope to live longer than 7 years. And the Buddha's reply was, that is an unmindful way to meditate on the meaning of death, meaning you're wrong. That's not how you do it. Okay, so what happens next? Another monk said, I do not hope to live longer than 7 months. Then another bhikshu said, I do not hope to live longer than 7 days. And then others, I think it's like it reminds me of a classroom, although I'm sure it wasn't like that at all. A classroom when someone gives the wrong answer and then everyone wants to be the teacher's pet, and then everyone tries to giving the right answer or giving the answer that they think that the teacher wants to hear. So anyway, everyone gave a different answer, but every answer was superior to the answer before because the numbers went down. So 7 days, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the Buddha just told all of them they were wrong and said, all of you are meditating unmindfully on the meaning of death. Okay, so one of them said that he did not hope to live longer than one morning from morning until mealtime. And another person tried to outdo him, say he did not hope to live longer than a single meal, so you might die while you're chewing your food. Then the Buddha also told them, he said, you are all meditating unmindfully on the meaning of death. So finally, okay, one guy got it right, one monk got it right. He says, having arranged his upper robe over his left shoulder, said to the Buddha, I hope to live only as long as the time needed for an out-breath without waiting for the next in-breath, or the time required for an in-breath without waiting for the next out-breath. In other words, you are not living in the future, you are living very, very much in the present. In other words, your mind is not wandering. Your mind is just concentrating on right now. Yeah. And I don't have the Buddha's reply. Then actually, so the Buddha said, oh, okay, now that is meditating mindfully on the meaning of death. So the Buddha approved. Yeah. Okay, and then the next slide that I have is the last one. There are two sutras that I'm quoting here. One is called the Arrow Sutta or the Sala Sutta. It says, just as when fruits have ripened, there is always fear of their falling. Okay, this is where the durian analogy is more appropriate because there's a fear for falling, of the fruit falling. So for mortals who have taken birth, there is always fear of death. So when you remember this particular passage, you can rename this sutra to the Durian Sutra. Okay, Duran Sutta. And then from the Visuddhimagga, or the path of purification, it says, death appears as a butcher who threatens all beings, and as soon as they are born, holds a knife at their throats. Okay, all right. So now, okay, let's look at the questions. Peggy had a question, okay, and her question was this. Question was, she was told that when a person dies, do not touch a person's body when he or she has just left the world. So that's the first point. And then the second point is to touch the person's head. And she says, it seems as if these two are contradictory. And what does Buddhism teach us about that? Okay, so usually Buddhist practice, especially Pure Land practice, but not limited to Pure Land, because it has its roots in the sutras and in the Yogacara texts. When someone has just passed away, it says the last to leave is the eighth consciousness. So at the moment of conversely, when under Buddhism, life is when life begins at the moment of conceivement is when the eighth consciousness enters the body of the mother, and that is when the embryo is formed. So it happens at a very early stage. So the eighth consciousness is the first to appear, and the eighth consciousness is the last to go. So after all the first seven consciousnesses, which is the eye consciousness, the ear, nose, tongue, body, and finally the mind consciousnesses go away, and then the seven, which is the manas consciousness, or where the ego is, they all disappear. So the body, for all intent and purposes, is lifeless already. The eighth consciousness is still there, and it is said that the eighth consciousness may remain in the body for up to 8 or 12 hours. And during this time, Shufu says that if you move the body, because the body is not in its normal state anymore, so any movement of the body can become really painful. Shufu says it's like a tortoise having its shell ripped off. So if possible, you leave the body the way it is for 8 to 12 hours. So that's where the first point comes from, not touching the body for that time. And then the second one about touching the person's head, that comes from the Shurangama Sutra as well. I'm not sure if the Shurangama Sutra, it is Shufu's commentary, or the Buddha mentioned it. The Buddha mentioned about heat and the body because it has to do with the second point. So the second point is about when the eighth consciousness leaves the body. Okay, it says that it is said that if the person has done a lot of wholesome deeds, and the conditions are there where the person will go to a fortunate rebirth, then it says, let me see, the eighth consciousness will leave from the upper part of the body, not necessarily the head, but from the upper part of the body. And that is an indication that is a higher rebirth. But if the person has done a lot of unwholesome deeds, and the person's next rebirth is to fall into the lower realms, then they will leave from the lower part of the body. Okay, so some people, knowing that, okay, will try to examine the body to, kind of like a busybody, trying to figure out where the soul has gone. So Shufu says, if the consciousness, so Shufu says the point where the eighth consciousness leaves is the last point of warmth on the body. So Shufu says, if the eighth consciousness leaves through the soles of the feet, that spot will be warm. If it leaves from the legs will be warm. If it departs from the waist will be warm. And it goes from the top of the head will be warm. That's what the sutra mentions as in finally when the worm leaves the body. And Shakyamuni Buddha explained the Shurangama Sutra. So that's where the part about, sometimes you have people touching the body, trying to figure out, where the person has gone. It's just, it's there in the sutras and it's true, but I don't think it's a beneficial practice. If someone really wants to try to figure it out, I think the best practice would be to wait after 8 or 12 hours, and then you can touch the body if you want to try to find out. Yeah. Anything then, you are just fulfilling your own curiosity without having the intentions of the person, without having the best intentions for the other person, So, yeah, for most people, you don't have to worry. I would say don't even worry about that at all, about the second point, that which part of the body is warm. Yeah. Okay. So that's the basically the answer to your question, Peggy. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yes, no? Or death or dying?
Yeah, I have a question, Dharma Master.
Yes, Susan.
If the relatives or there are people around the dead person, if they are talking, will the dead be able to hear their conversation? Thanks.
Okay, what I do know, I don't know the answer to your question, but what I do know is that they say when someone passes away, they can feel emotions. So they advise against crying, grieving for the departed, fighting. Fighting is very important because all these negative emotions can be sensed or seen or felt. I'm not sure, but they would be aware. I think maybe aware is a better term to use. So they would be aware of all this. So I guess because speech comes from the mind and speech is built upon emotions and all that. So I think they're all like kind of linked together. Yeah. So what you want to do is, instead of like having discussions around the disease, is you want to create the conditions that will lead to a favorable rebirth. So for those who practice the Pure Land, that will be reciting the Buddha's name, because reciting the Buddha's name has a way. Yeah, I guess they are aware. I'm not sure if here is the right word to use. They would be aware. So that's why people chant the Buddha's name around the deceased, especially during the first 24 hours. Let me see. Yeah, I think 24 hours at least they chant the Buddha's name. Yeah. So it may not necessarily, it may be here, but I think aware is a more appropriate term. Yeah.
Maybe, Lao Shi,
Yes.
Fasha, just I'm just being practical here and being scientific. Usually the body goes into embalming and it goes off to the morgue, the first few hours it goes off. So the body would have lost all its fluid and it would be embalmed by the time within 24 hours it's brought back to the family, for it going off and all the chanting. Would that be the same? Because the body would not have any more body fluids in it anymore. You'll be all embalmed. I'm just trying to understand that.
Yes. So usually if it's a Buddhist family And if the person has, I would say, the right conditions, what happens is prior arrangements are made with the doctors, depending on where the person is. If the person is at home, then the family will, who knows this or aware, or have been advised to, they will not touch the body for at least 8 to 12 hours. And then if they are in a facility, like in a hospital or in a care home or other places, then what happens is the family usually tries their best to arrange for that to happen. So there are instances where the doctors understand and then they cooperate with the family and they just leave the body there until 12 hours has passed. Then whatever needs to be done gets done. Because the commentaries say that during this period, if the eight consciousness is still within the body, anything that is done to the body is extremely painful, and it adversely affects the well-being of the eight consciousness. Is that helpful? Yes, Ron?
Well, sure. You were reading at first about, you mentioned that if a person did a lot of good deeds or versus a person who does a lot of bad deeds, right, determines where the body, where the rebirth goes. But then I think in the Shurangama Sutra it says that your final state, however, when you die, if your mind is not at peace, you go to a lower kind of rebirth. Whereas if your mind is in a good state, I mean a peaceful state, you will rebirth in a higher level. I'm kind of confused by the two things that were said this morning. Am I raising? Is that true of what I mentioned, or do I
Yes.
correctly?
Yeah, so it's all related. Okay, so what happens is this. In the Shurangama Sutra, the Buddha says that when a person dies, there is, the Buddha gave two possible, like a scale. So on one side of the scale is emotion, and on the other side of the scale is logic. Logic meaning free from emotion. So the Buddha says if it's 50-50, then rebirth is as a human being in general, okay? I don't think this is like clear cut, but 50-50 human rebirth. And then the more emotion you have, the lower you fall. So for someone who is full of emotion, that means no logic. No logic meaning there are some people who, like I've seen some homeless people in San Francisco where they are in a totally different reality. I've dealt with some of them. They are caught in a reality where you cannot reach them. They perceive things very differently from normal people. When you try to talk to them, they just repeat the same thing over and over again. So logic at that time cannot apply. It's very, very hard to break them out of their cycle of thoughts. So that's one way of understanding when the Buddha says the more emotion you have, the more consumed by emotion like anger, jealousy, those strong kind of emotions, the lower you will fall. And depending on the severity of emotion to logic, below 50-50, that determines how low you fall. And then as we go the other way, if you have more logic than emotion, you go up. So that's where the practice comes in. Loving kindness, So when they talk about emotion, it's not like loving kindness is not an emotion. Loving kindness is an emotion, but it's a pure state of mind. Okay, so emotion here means unwholesome states of mind. So the purer you have, the higher you rise up. So that's what the Buddha explains in the Shurangama Sutra. So what has this got to do with at the moment of death? At the moment of death, by creating the right conditions, you can help the person's consciousness be positive or negative. So for example, in the Sri Lanka Buddhist tradition, when a person is dying or have died, they have this practice where they recite out loud to that person the virtues of the person, the good things that this person has done, usually in connection with the Dharma, because it's a Buddhist practice. They do this so that the person, say upon his death, will be able to be mindful of their virtues, which is what we've been learning about the last few weeks, how to be mindful of our own virtues and develop loving kindness. So this practice is about helping the person who's about to die, who has died, because sometimes it's an unpleasant process they go through. There might be some physical sufferings or mental anguish as they're going through. So by recollecting loudly to that person all the good things that they have done, the aim is to bring their mind to a good state so that it will affect their rebirth. Same goes for Pure Land practice. The whole of Pure Land practice is all about preparing yourself for that final moment as well. So today I had a conversation with my cousin, Alan, who is online with us right now. So according to the Yogacara, as well as the Pali Canon, this is what it says about how our karma affects us. Okay, hold on, let me see. It says when a person is dying or at the point of death, it says that which is the most serious in terms of our karma, the most serious is the first to produce its results, then that which is manifested at the moment of death, then that which is habitually performed earlier, finally that which was performed from a past life. So in other words, the strongest thing that you have done in your life, the most serious thing that you have done in your life takes precedence, is very important. Second, in terms of influence in your birth, is your state of mind at the moment of death. So the first one, the serious one, are those considered like the 5 serious deeds where you shed the blood of a Buddha, you shed the blood of an Arhat, you perform matricide and patricide, and you create a schism or you split the Sangha. Those kind of serious, very serious deeds, which most people don't do. So the second one, or murder, okay? But then the second level for most people is then that which is manifested at the moment of death. And then the after that, in terms of influence, is what we do in our daily lives. So which is where Pure Land practice comes in, because Pure Land practice is supposed to help us in every moment of our daily life dedicate everything we do to the Pure Land, meaning we practice wholesome deeds because we want to go to the Pure Land. And also, our state of mind at the moment of death, a lot has to do with our daily state of mind that we try to develop. So in Pali, in the Theravada canon, there's what is known as the 4 karmas according to its priority of effect. One is what I just explained. And then the other one is, it says, the last thought, which is called reproductive karma. It is the last thought that determines the state of a person in his subsequent good or bad birth. There are 2 formulas. The second formula puts that in as the as predominant, and then the second one is known as supportive karma, which is our daily actions, our habits that we accumulate throughout this lifetime. But it all comes back to more or less the same thing. Yeah, our daily practice and how strong we are at our moment of death, which is why you don't want to disturb the body, because it can cause anger to arise because of the pain. Yeah.
Fashu, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
You know, I have seen so many of my relatives that pass on because of dementia. Oh, there is just no way that person, a little bit like the drug cases, someone that has gone through drugs and not able to control the mind, how are that treated? Because there's no more mindfulness at all already at death, especially when you're a dementia person.
Okay. So there's something called the intermediate skandha state, which is what happens when the eight consciousness leaves the body. But even before the eight consciousness leaves the body, at that time, based on, for example, like reciting on behalf of the deceased, the eight consciousness has a way of understanding that goes beyond what our normal senses allow. So I'm not sure, like someone alive with dementia, what happens at to the state of mind after they pass away. But the eight consciousness, say during the period of after death and before the next rebirth, which is known as the Antara Bhava, literally it means the in-between existence, or sometimes people say the intermediate skandha state. It is where we appropriate a body for ourselves, which is not a physical body, but like a spirit body. And during this period, which can last anytime from 7 to 49 days, some say that is a cycle of 7. So 7 times 7 become 49. And there are 7 different incarnations of this intermediate body that happens during 7 times. The physical rules don't apply to this body. So if they think of a place or a relative, immediately they can go there. It's kind of like they have spiritual powers. Yeah. So I think, I don't know, but there could be a possibility for someone who, when the body is still functioning and they may have Alzheimer's or dementia or some kind of their karma is being played out, that when the body stops functioning and the eight consciousness is left, they will become aware. Yeah. There might be a possibility. I haven't read anything that explains that particular set of conditions before. Yeah, but I think that because of the way the eight consciousness is, I wouldn't be surprised if there would be an awareness of what is going on.
Thank you.
For sure, I have another question.
Yes, Sui Ling.
Why are there wandering spirits? Is it because they do not want to take rebirth? And does it mean that rebirth is not immediate for everyone? Thank you.
Yes. So normally, okay, if your conditions are very favorable, you can get reborn immediately. Those who get reborn in the Pure Land apparently get reborn immediately. So it's like you close your eyes, you open your eyes, and you're in your new existence. I read in a text called the Abhidhamma, it's written by this monk who is responsible for giving rise to Yogacara school. He says that for those born in the human realm, if you're going to be reborn in the human realm, the realm of the 6 heavens and the upper realms, you will inherit an intermediate skandha, the Antara Bhava, the body in between. And then your existence can last anywhere from 7 to 49 days. So that's what that text says, 7 to 49 days, but it's not fixed. It could be less. It could be less than a day, for example. In the case of these so-called wandering spirits, okay, sometimes the texts do not distinguish between whether they are hungry ghosts or whether they have yet to be reborn. So there is that ambiguity there, because there are hungry ghosts that are described as wandering spirits as well. And then, from what I know from Shufu's commentary, there are some people who have a very unfortunate death, like a violent death or an accidental death, like a car accident. I think for that category of people, there's a possibility where their rebirth does not occur within the 49 days. So I think the WhatsApp group, there was, I remember having read before in the delegation to Europe, although I can't find the source, when Shufu went to Europe, and Shufu was doing precepts for the deceased, I think. And some people could see, or Shufu were describing some of the spirits that were wearing the old war uniforms, and they had been dead for quite some time. And now they were being liberated so they could go on to rebirth. So that might be souls people who have died a violent death, and they have not been able to get reborn yet. I don't think it's a matter of choice for them whether they want to or not. So there's that as well. But it's kind of hazy because the text, as far as my limited reading, doesn't clearly explain all this. It's not very clear cut. Yeah.
So it means that the master, that some people who have died, they remain as wandering spirits for a very, very long time, hundreds and hundreds of years, earth years. It means they don't seem to get reborn, right? Is that correct? Thank you.
From that encounter in Europe, it seems that there is that possibility.
So where do these spirits or ghosts, I mean, where do they congregate? I mean, where do they go to? They stay at the cemetery? I mean, they stay where they're buried, or?
I have no idea, Ron.
Oh.
Yeah. And time for them passes differently as well. Yeah.
I mean, I've always wondered, like, the world of the Buddhas, that everything has everything is under control. You know what I mean? It's like you have the ghost kings and the spirit kings, and then you have the and somehow the all that Dharma realm is under control of some things. And I was always kind of curious about. Yeah.
Okay, I think sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Ron, but because we're out of time, I think the principle of all this, although it's very interesting to know about this, and we can piece together, since we can't tell ourselves, we don't have the ability. Some of you might. It might be very interesting to try to figure out what's going on, but even if you know, okay, for sure what happens and all the different realms, and this leads to that and that leads to this, it's not going to help you if you don't put in the effort to avoid all of it. So the principle of it is, yes, it's interesting to know, and yes, the questions, we are curious people, but the principle is to avoid all this in the first place. To know that, these actions lead to this kind of outcomes, and therefore I should try my best to avoid putting myself in those situations. Okay.
Right. And I agree with you.
Yeah. And then is if as we learn, we pick up certain bits or pieces to help us form a better understanding, then that's good. If not, the whole point is to avoid. Okay. All right. So I ended up going beyond time. So let me quickly get the slides to dedicate merit. And if anyone has, because I'm compiling, where is, sorry, I pressed the wrong button. If anyone has more questions, please send them to me, because I'm compiling questions for hopefully a series of lectures on exactly this topic, everything to do with the whole process of death, dying, and from a point of practice on how to ensure we fulfill our best potential that we can. Okay? All right. I'm going to put my palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Let's do 3 bows to the Buddha. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Bowing respect to the Venerable Master. Second bow. Third bow. Half bow. Okay, Amitabha everyone, and we'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dharma
Thank you.
Master. Good night.